Well, after a lot of back and forth between President Trump, the president of Turkey, Kurdish forces, and the president of Syria, today a ceasefire in that region has been reached. U.S. Vice President Mike Pence met with Turkish President Erdogan today, but this challenging trip was made even more tricky a day earlier. That's when President Trump appeared to undermine its purpose in remarks at the White House, saying that the U.S. shouldn't be losing lives because it's not about U.S. borders. But the VP and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo were able to broker a deal anyway.
That today the United States and Turkey have agreed to a ceasefire in Syria.
So the big question, how did we get here? Well, it's a complicated answer. It goes back hundreds of years, but here's a very simplified background of that region. First of all, the Kurds are an ethnic group of about 40 million people who don't really have a country, scattered across Turkey, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. The Kurds control this northern area up here in yellow. You can see it borders Turkey, which is on the north. Turkey has long been an enemy of the Kurds, even going as far as banning the Kurdish language. The country also calls the Kurdish-controlled area of Syria a haven for people it calls terrorists. Well, American Kurdish forces along the border have created a safe zone. That's that dotted line at the tip here along the Turkey border. But that ended earlier this month when the president pulled American troops out of the area, and Turkey has begun moving into that area. Now, without the U.S., the Kurds have asked Syrian forces to come help keep Turkish forces out, giving Syria and its allies more power in the region. This video that you're looking at is from last night, shows Syrian forces entering the city of Kobani, where the Syrian Kurds fought for months with American air support to kick ISIS out. The vast majority of the rest of the country, this orange area here, is controlled by Syrian President Assad and pro-government allies, namely Russia and Vladimir Putin. President Assad has maintained control of that area, mostly by committing war crimes against his own people. So while there may be a ceasefire, Pence says it will be a pause in military operations for 120 hours to allow the Kurds to withdraw from the safe zone. So not an actual declaration of peace here. Well, Utah Senator Mitt Romney has been opposed to the withdrawal from the beginning, as have many others on both sides of the aisle. Here's what he said today.
First, I welcome the Vice President's announcement of a ceasefire, which will prevent further loss of life. I hope the agreement is honored. But at the heart of this matter is the central question of why these terms and assurances were not negotiated before the President consented to withdraw our troops. The announcement today is being portrayed as a victory. It is far from a victory. Serious questions remain about how the decision was reached to precipitously withdraw from Syria and why that decision was reached. Given the initial details of the ceasefire agreement, the administration must also explain what America's future role will be in the region, what happens now to the Kurds, and why Turkey will face no apparent consequences. Further, the ceasefire does not change the fact that America has abandoned an ally. Adding insult to dishonor, the administration speaks cavalierly, even flippantly, even as our ally has suffered death and casualty. Their homes have been burned, and their families have been torn apart.
Earlier this week, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs estimated the number of people displaced to be around 160,000. That includes 70,000 children since the start of Turkey's military operation earlier this month. 160,000 people, to give you some perspective here, is about the size of West Valley City.